Lesson 4.8 on page 227 is talking about dependent and independent variables. So kind of a question we're going to think about, what does it mean for one variable to be dependent on another variable? So on 227 it says Max is shipping a present to his grandmother. What are three factors that will affect the weight of the box? What are three factors that will not affect the weight of the box? Talk about those first, and then we'll look at the other part. So, things that will affect the weight. One thing would be the present, or you could say, we'll just call it the present, I guess. Or the present's weight. Well, what the present is basically is affecting the weight here. Okay, so we'll have the weight of the box. Might not think about that one, but the box does weigh something also. With the present, if they included a card, we'll consider that separate than the present part. Not real heavy, but some weight there. Another thing you see in the picture there, there's the tape. So whatever kind of tape that is, duct tape or shipping tape or whatever the case might be. Another one, not super heavy here, but would have a little bit of weight, would be the stickers. One other thing that would affect the weight would be as if they have maybe they have packing peanuts, or if they have I don't know what you call them, like bubble wrap, yeah, bubble wrap, or those bubble sometimes they have bigger bubble things that they pack in there to keep stuff from getting messed up. So besides that, we can also talk about things that won't affect the weight of the box. Things that won't affect the weight. So the color of the box is not necessarily going to affect it. I mean, you could argue, well, if it was whatever color and they colored it and then the ink weighs something, not a big factor there probably. How it's being shipped would be another one that's not going to affect the weight of the box. Okay, that could affect the cost, but not the weight of the box, right? So in other words, if we're sending it with the postal service or UPS or FedEx or whatever, the weight should still be the same regardless. When it is shipped would be another thing, okay? So, in other words, if we send it on a Monday or a Friday or even the time of year, okay, January or December or August. Where it is being shipped. And we could go both ways on that. Where it's being shipped, we could say to and from. just to condense that down. Another thing not affecting the weight would be the costs. The cost to ship it, okay? And understand, obviously the weight affects the cost, but the cost does not affect the weight, if that makes sense. One other thing that does not affect the costs, or does not affect the weight, sorry, does not affect the weight would be the day the box was made. Or date the box was made, yeah. Okay, so whatever day of the week it was made on or what time of year shouldn't affect how much the weight is going to be. If we look at part B, how might the size of the box and the contents of the box affect the weight of the box? So we can look at both pieces of that. So for the size of the box, we could say the bigger the box is, the more material is used to make the box, which makes it heavier. And the material the contents are made of would make it lighter or heavier. So like if something was made out of concrete or something versus paper is going to affect the weight. And then also if the contents are heavier, the box might have to be made out of different material. If it's heavier stuff, we might need a heavier duty box in order to make sure that it doesn't fall apart or break through and the tape, where the tape is and stuff isn't holding it together. So example 1, an orchard sells apples by the pound. Each day P pounds of apples are sold and the amount of money taken in, M, is recorded. So which variable, P or M, depends on the other variable? So we could think about how many apples we sold depends on how much money we took in, or how much money we took in depends how many apples we sold. Well, it's the second one. The money depends on how many apples we sold. So the dependent variable, you could think of the dependent variable depends on the other thing. It changes in response to the other variable. So in this case, the money that we make depends on the number of pounds that we sold. So M would be our dependent variable. And then the independent variable causes the dependent variable to change. So number of apples sold affects the amount of money taken in. So P is the independent variable. When you're doing these, just think about which one affects the other thing. Also, usually we can think about which thing came first. In this case, in this situation, did the apples come first or the money? Well, the apples came, and then we sold the apples and we got money. So the money is depending on the apples that we sold. On the try it, a baker used a certain number of cups of batter B to make P pancakes. Which variable, P pancakes or B batter, is the dependent variable? Just to make sure everybody understands here, when you make pancakes, you have, if you're making them from scratch, not getting a box of pancakes out of the freezer, you have ingredients that you're putting together, depending if you're making it from scratch or you're using Bisquick or something to help you make this. You have different ingredients you mix together, and once you've mixed those ingredients together, that's called the batter. So if you kind of think about the process here, it kind of makes sense. The batter is what we're going to start out with, and then we're going to get the pancakes. So Which one is dependent? Well, think about it again, like we talked about. Which one comes first? Which one depends on what? Well, the pancakes depends on how much batter you have. How many pancakes you make depends on how much batter. So the batter is independent. Again, it comes first, and then based off of how much batter is going to determine how many pancakes that you can make. And then to convince me, if the baker doubles the number of cups of batter, what would you expect to happen to the number of pancakes made? Probably twice as much batter would mean we could make twice as many pancakes.